This video covers aircraft from Canada, China, Italy, Czechoslovakia, Poland, and Spain, countries that were not covered in earlier postings in this series. These were all photographed or videoed in museums and air shows in the United States. If you enjoy this video, please give it a like. Thank you. The all-weather Avro CF100 was the only Canadian-designed and Canadian-built fighter to go into large-scale production. 9 Royal Canadian Air Force CF100 squadrons flew side by side with United States Air Force units, protecting the North American continent from potential Soviet bomber attacks across the North Pole. Although RCAF fighter squadrons phased out the CF-100 in 1961 and 62, it continued to serve as an electronic warfare aircraft well into the 1970s. Avro's CF-100 Mark IV-A Canuck is displayed at the National Museum of the United States Air Force. The AOCAR was the result of a Canadian effort to develop a supersonic vertical takeoff and landing fighter bomber in the early 1950s. The concept was having exhaust from the turbojet engines drive a circular turbo-rotor to create thrust. Directing the thrust downward would create an air cushion that floated the craft at low altitudes. Directing the thrust rearward would then accelerate the aircraft while gaining altitude. After wind tunnel tests showed the aircraft had insufficient control for high-speed flight and was aerodynamically unstable, a live test flight confirmed the results and the project was canceled. Avro's VZ-9AV AOCAR is also displayed at the Air Force Museum. The CT-156 Harvard II is a variant of Beechcraft's T-6 Texan used for pilot instructions in the NATO flying training in Canada. Students fly the Harvard II in Phase 2 and 3 of the NFTC training program. This Harvard II was displayed at the 2015 Cleveland Air Show. The Nanjing CJ-6 Basic Trainer aircraft is an all-original Chinese design that is commonly mistaken for a Yak-18A. It is used by the Chinese People's Liberation Army Air Force. The total production run is estimated at more than 3,000 aircraft that are divided between CJ-6s used for training Chinese pilots and for PT-6 variants exported to foreign countries. The CJ-6A performed at the 2011 A Gathering of Eagles Air Show. The Aero L29 Delin, the NATO reporting name Maya, is a military jet trainer developed and manufactured by Czechoslovakian aviation manufacturer Aero Vodichody. It is the first Czech locally designed and constructed jet aircraft and became the standard trainer for the Warsaw Pact Air Forces. The Delin served in basic, intermediate, and weapons training roles. It was equipped with hard points to carry gun pods, bombs, or rockets in its weapons training role and was a relatively good ground attack aircraft when deployed as such. This Delin performed at the 2011 A Gathering of Eagles Air Show, while this one is exhibited at the MAPS Air Museum. The Machi MC20000 Felora was one of the best airplanes fielded in significant numbers by the Italian Royal Air Force during World War II. This Felora was exhibited at the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., is one of only 2 remaining Feloras, but is currently on loan or in storage. The CA-36 was the definitive version of Italian aeronautical engineer Gianni Caprione's multi-engine heavy bombers. 20 were built in 1918, with 19 more in 1919, and a total of 153 being built. Most were delivered to the Royal Italian Air Force. The CA-36 is exhibited at the National Museum of the United States Air Force. The Machi MC20000 was developed in the mid-1930s for the Italian Royal Air Force and was one of the principal fighters during World War II. Some 1,151 were produced, while about 156 were in service when Italy entered the war. Thyatas were first employed against the British in Malta, then in Greece, North Africa, Yugoslavia, and the Soviet Union. U.S. Army Air Forces fought against them in North Africa and over Italy itself. This Sayata was captured by British forces at Benghazi Airfield following the Battle of El Alamein. It is displayed at the Air Force Museum in the markings of the 372nd Squadron that it carried when it was captured. The LIM-2 Midget is the Polish licensed version of the Soviet two-seat MiG-15 UTI midget jet trainer, with 500 built between 1954 and 56. The MiG-15 Faggot was a jet fighter developed for the USSR and was one of the first successful swept-wing jet fighters. The MiG-15 achieved fame in the skies over Korea, where it outclassed all straight-wing enemy fighters in most applications. Because there was not a mass-produced training version of the MiG-17 Fresco or MiG-19 Farmer, the MiG-15 UTI Midget remained the sole Warsaw Pact advanced jet trainer well into the 1970s. This aircraft will be remarked with the Polish Air Force insignia and markings. The LIM-6 was a Polish attack aircraft MiG-17 variant used between 1961 and 1992. It was armed with two 23mm and one 37mm cannons, just like the MiG-17 was. It had 4 underwing pylons for a typical armament of 2 Polish Mars 2 rocket launchers for 16 unguided S-5 57mm rockets in each pod, or 100 kilograms of bombs. It could also carry 250 kilograms of bombs or launchers on standard outer underwing pods, but usually they were used for 400-liter fuel tanks. This Fresco is marked with the Polish Air Force checkerboard insignia used on their aircraft from 1921 through 1993 with fall camouflage markings. It was donated to MAPS by the Military Aircraft Restoration Corporation and was the first aircraft to become the sole property of MAPS. After several crashes and redesigns, Don Juan Deok produced the C-30A autogyro that had a control column that extended into the cockpit where the pilot could control the rotor head, permitting him to control the craft's banking and pitch. This modification gave the pilot more control than he had with earlier versions. The C-30A is exhibited at the Fantasy of Flight Museum. I hope you enjoyed this video covering some foreign aircraft exhibited in the United States.